We have a culture that's rich, rich beyond our wildest dreams. And it's laid out everywhere. And most of it is laid out in the experience of these people that we honor and respect and revere and all that. The experience that they went through. Not things that they said that they wrote about, but what they actually went through. Their foot touching the soil, their hands touching the dirt, like what they actually went through. Right? Fugitive Slave Act was passed by the United States Congress in 1850 as part of the Compromise of 1850 between Southern slave holding and Northern free soilers. This was one of the most controversial acts in 1850 compromise and heightened Northern fears of a slave power conspiracy. Reverend Luther Lee, pastor of Wesleyan Methodist Church of Syracuse in 1855. I never would obey it. I had assisted 30 slaves to escape to Canada during the last month. If the authorities wanted anything from me, my residence was at 39 Onondaga Street. I would admit that they could take me and lock me up in the penitentiary on the hill. But if they did such a foolish thing as that, I had friends enough on Onondaga County to level it to the ground before the next morning. The slaves could no longer take control over what they never could imagine. What they could never imagine. Free white persons, referred to in the Naturalization Act by July 14, 1870, has meaning naturally given to it when first used in First Statute 103, meaning all persons belonging to European races then commonly counted as white and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have emigrated. Free white person includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descents. It includes Magyars, Lapps, and Finns, and Basques of Albania. It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of southern Russia. Free white people does not mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. A Syrian of Asiatic birth and descent would not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person. And this definition is the reason why Rosa Parks sat at the front of the bus. She wasn't black, she was white. And they persecuted her because if word got out to these niggers that they're actually the white people and the nigger is actually the European, they would cause a riot. And when black people riot, they burn down everybody's stuff, even their own stuff. And they don't care. And they're not going to go to the police station of the guy who beat up that dude and bombed that. Or they're not going to go to some Klansman office or some Masonic people that they say did something to them. They're going to come right around here where you live and mash up all your stuff. That's how black people get down. That's why Rosa Parks wasn't getting down with it. Why? It's just like when we see youths today. They walk in the classroom, go to the back. Because the mentality of being in the back is from black being on the back of the bus. Right? You have a question, sir? Oh. No one stole our culture. The most famous map song was Follow the Drinking Gourd, which used the metaphor of a drinking gourd to symbolize the constellation of stars known as Ursa Major Big Dipper, containing the North Star, an important compass guide for individuals and families who needed to be certain that they were continuing to travel in the direction of the north as they made their way north to freedom. So this is CMB, Clock of Destiny 2. The dark-skinned, kinky-haired Moorish nation are direct descendants of the Moabite nation. The term Moor means navigator of the seven seas, guided by the North Gate pole star. So the term Moor is from CMB, Clock of Destiny 2. That's in the Library of Congress. The dark-skinned, kinky-haired Moorish nation are direct descendants of the Moabite nation. The term Moor means navigator of the seven seas, guided by the North Gate pole star. If African slaves had no culture and were illiterate, how did they know about the North Star? Cellular memory. So remember, these are slaves from Africa. These are high-level occultists and scientists, right? Cellular memory is that memories can be stored in all the cells of human bodies. This is used to explain having memories for events where the brain was not in a position to store memories, and is sometimes a catalyst for repressed memories recovery. Cell memory states that every cell in our body contains information about our personalities and our history. Not only that, but each cell has its own way of thinking. Continuity of cellular memory is passed down through generations in the form of perceived wisdom called perception, which is being narcoleptic and getting visions from the ancestors. Oracle, shaman. This is how she knew about the North Star, and that's the way to go. She was illiterate and had no culture. Didn't know how to read or write, but she knows about the North Star. And that if she follows this North Star, she's going to end up in Canaan. Corded quilts. So, you see a slave picture, and there's a quilt hanging. That's not just a quilt hanging. Because during slavery, they had corded quilts. The one on the top is Bear's Paw. Bear's Paw. The Appalachian Mountains were natural barriers separating the southern slave states from the northern free states. Although most Africans were unfamiliar with bears, they were told that following bear tracks would lead them through the mountains to food and water and finally to safety. The bottom one is an indigenous quilt. So the top one is a slave quilt, and the bottom one is an indigenous aboriginal tribal quilt. So you can see the relation in the imagery on the quilt. And that these so-called African slaves had nothing to do with being African slaves. They were aboriginal and indigenous people. And they used the knowledge that they had in their cellular memory to do these acts. Bow ties. This is a symbol indicating it was necessary to travel in disguise or to change form. The clothing of a slave to those of a person of higher status. So this quilt meant that when you get to certain areas, you're going to have to change your clothes, and you can't act like a slave no more. You have to be like, you have to act like a free man. So this slave now is going to go dress up and act like a free man, and then nobody's going to bother him. Okay, so you just got into slavery. You just got into slavery. Change his clothes and act like a free man. In 1913, that was called proclaiming your nationality by Noble Drew Ali. This code of the bow tie is letting us know that when the slaves were getting out of slavery, the bow tie process was proclaiming their nationality and changing your imagery from what they customarily are chasing and lynching to somebody of a higher status. And then you're free from slavery. Slavery's over. Like this was the last stage. And again, logic and common sense. When you join the Nation of Islam, you got a bow tie and you have to change your name. And you have to change how you dress. Ask any of those dudes how they used to dress before they were in the Nation of Islam, and tell me if that's not the bow tie ritual from getting out of slavery. Logic and common sense, and we'll get there. And then the bottom one again is the indigenous Aboriginal tribal quilt. Now you can see the relation by the fact that there's squares and pyramids and triangles. Everything's right there in our face. Crossroads. The crossroads symbol referred to Cleveland, Ohio, which was the main crossroads with several routes to freedom. On a less literal level, the term crossroads also means reaching a turning point in one's life, where a choice must be made and then carry on. O Canaan, sweet Canaan, I am bound for the land of Canaan, was reference to Canada, the land of freedom at the end of the slavery. Then there's a slave hymn called Bright Canaan. So these are African slaves beaten the head with the Bible, but the hymns that they're singing are to Canaan, which is the cursed place, or the same Bible that it's supposed that they're following, that they're indoctrinated with. But they're honoring Canaan, and they want to go to Canaan so bad out of slavery because that's where freedom is and that's where the light is. They're telling us that they're Aboriginal people. Only Aboriginal people call Canada Canaan. And people who are done with Aboriginal people. Other than that, this is Canada, which is a private corporation. And you go on the Security and Exchange Commission's website, and you put in CIK number 00230098, it'll tell you that Canada is a corporation. And its head office is in Washington, D.C. at the Canadian Embassy. That's not what I say. That's what the United States Security and Exchange Commission says. And this is Canaan. The slaves knew it. They had it in their hymns when they were singing out of slavery that they're going to Canaan. I'm bound for the land of Canaan. Oh, Canaan, it is my happy home. How come they're not going back to Africa? How come they're not going to Canaan over there? If Canaan is freedom,